Floor leads, it says floor, but I'm gonna say Leo. Is that all right? Because you have a scarf on and I feel I should say Leo. Leo leads Seattle's FIFA World Cup 26 focus on hosting the games in a way that strengthens the community for the long term. He brings 20 years of public service leadership experience as a former Army officer, a local legal aid attorney, and most recently as the director of the King County Department of Community and Human Services. Seattle is the first FIFA World Cup 2026 host city to appoint a chief legacy officer, signaling our regional belief that the benefits of hosting the world's largest tournament should last for decades after the final whistle. And we believe that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome for remarks, Leo Ford.
I fear I may be less dynamic a speaker than our fearless leader, and I have no paper to crumple, but I do have a question to start with. Who here can say in which nation the term soccer originated?
United States?
We have one guess for the United States, and that is incorrect, although we are the country that uses it most prominently now. Who said England first? Who else said England? Wow. All right. England is the correct answer. And please misinterpret nothing as I hand out scarves that do say Seattle very in very large letters as I am here in Federal Way. So what I'm hoping to do today is just give a little bit of information about the World Cup that's coming. There's a couple of key things to start with. One, notwithstanding the very interesting information about the World Cup, and the ticker is not up here, so if I may ask you to advance the slides, please. There we go, we can say there. So the first thing is, I don't work for FIFA, and the way that local organizing committees are set up is each host city for the World Cup, as a condition of having had their bid accepted, agrees to form a host committee. In our case, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We've got about 8 employees now, actually, I'm going to my head up. And then in some other cases, the city government itself has constituted that local organizing committee, but that'll come up a little bit later in terms of what we can do together in order to maximize the local benefit. I think the second thing that I'm going to try to convey today is just the scale or scope of what the World Cup is as it's coming to our entire region, and I do think this is both a regional, thank you very much, and a statewide event, and I think that's really important, again, notwithstanding the fact that the host city itself is Seattle. And then the last thing I really want to spend some time on is what I think some of the opportunities are, or the sort of general form in which opportunity will come for you all. Because it's not super interesting to everybody to just hear about like what will happen inside of the stadium. I think this is a much larger event than just the soccer games. I think some of you probably agree that's why you might be here today. And we'll talk through what some of those opportunities will be. So the scale of the event, the World Cup is the largest sporting event in the world, and that's just empirical. The number of people that watch or pay attention to it is sort of off the charts. Who knows, I don't have a scarf for this, who knows what the most watched TV event in the United States is on any given year? Super Bowl. How many people watch Super Bowl? Let me reformat my question. Who here knows the number of people across the world who will watch any given Super Bowl?
Not that many.
About 185 million people across the world will tune in for some part of a Super Bowl on any given year. The least watched World Cup game in 2022, the one with the least interesting teams at the worst possible point of the day, had 200 million people watching some portion of it. The most watched of those games was the final. 1.5 billion people tuned in for the final, not the notwithstanding the fact that it's at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning in our time zone. 5 billion unique individuals watch some part of a World Cup match. That is more than half of the humans on Earth who tuned into this event. And so I think, I make no assumptions about the folks in this room and where you come from, but I think for a lot of folks who grew up in the United States, the magnitude of the World Cup is kind of hard to comprehend. Maybe some folks were around for 1994, but this is a much bigger version of the World Cup. So already the biggest event in the world. We are now expanding the World Cup to 48 total nations who will play. It's being hosted across 3 nations. There will be 104 total matches, which is about 50% more than in previous editions of the World Cup. And so already the biggest event, being hosted in the biggest way, with a much larger set of games and nations who will be involved, and we believe that's going to precipitate about 19 billion, and I'm not talking about unique folks at this point, but 19 billion people will tune in to the World Cup. And so that's how big it is. How many people are going to actually come here? We estimate it's going to be about 750,000 folks who will come here. That's an educated guess. It's really kind of hard to tell. As we take a look at previous World Cups, you can expect that about half of the folks who attend any match will come from outside of the country, and that we will have within the 50% who are from the United States, that will have folks from all over the United States coming. And so the stadium itself fits about 63,000 people. We do expect that every single match will be fully sold out, and that there will be tens of thousands of people who will come just to be nearby, close to the vibes. And so some of those folks will go to a big event that we'll call a fan fest or a fan celebration. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of those folks are just going to want to be nearby. And if you're counting hotel rooms, there are not nearly enough hotel rooms within walking radius of the stadium itself. And so we stand here, and one of the things that I think is really going to come up, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail, is I would expect that Federal Way is actually going to experience some of that increase in attention, increase in people coming. And what I want to do is just provide some of the information that can allow you all to begin to think about how you might plan for that, what you might do for that, whether there are opportunities for businesses that you might want to develop and pursue. All right, I am seeing that we both got a setup with the light that might make this a little bit hard to see, but if you can't see it, there are 2 things of consequence on the slide. So one, this is a calendar in 2026. Thank you, look at that. Can you talk to my family so my kids will get things like that too? Where you see a highlighted C and then a number, those are the dates on which there will be matches that are hosted in Seattle at Lumen Field. And then we've also included Vancouver, our sister city to the north in British Columbia is also a host venue, and we are 2 of the closest host venues in the whole tournament. So we expect that we're going to get a lot of folks moving back and forth, coming to see one game in Seattle, another game in Vancouver, vice versa, going back and forth. But a couple of things to point out here. We do have 6 matches. 4 of them are in the group stage, 2 of them in the knockout rounds. All of them happen on weekdays. I can't tell you what time those will happen yet, but we do estimate, plan, believe that they're going to fall sort of during work hours. So you might get some early or late morning, midday, or early evening matches. And that's just a guess based off of the way time zones overlap and who will be wanting to tune in internationally from both Asia and Europe in particular. The other 2 things that I think are pretty cool is, although it is a weekday, we do have a guaranteed match with the U.S. men's national team. They are coming here on June 19th of 2026. That is Juneteenth, a uniquely American holiday. And we believe that having the U.S. men's national team here with hundreds of millions of people watching creates a particular responsibility and opportunity to educate both our own population but also the world's population on why we have a holiday that commemorates the end of slavery, at least in formal sense, and when people heard about it. And so we don't have the full sort of plan for how to meet that responsibility yet, but it is one that weighs particularly heavy, but I think it's a cool kind of heavy as we take a look at what we can actually do with this World Cup. And to echo the outstanding introduction, this is more than about soccer. Soccer certainly is part of the draw, but this is much bigger than that. To that theme, we also have a match on the 24th of June, and that falls right before the Pride festivities that our community kicks off on the following weekend. If you watched the 2022 World Cup or followed it, you might have seen as it was hosted in Qatar that it was controversial about whether a person could wear a rainbow armband in a stadium. We're just not going to have that controversy as we host the World Cup here. And so on a level almost, I think, as sort of profoundly important as teaching the world about Juneteenth, we're also going to celebrate Pride as a community, having the world's eyes on us. And there are only 2 host cities that have both a Juneteenth match and a Pride match, and that has to do with the fact that the folks who sought the bid for the World Cup to come to Seattle build our region, as a state of inclusivity. If you want, there's a QR code there. You can pull down the whole schedule. The schedule itself is a pretty complicated document because, again, it shows 48 teams, 45 of whom have not been selected, playing in 104 matches, none of which have the actual time assigned to them. Okay, World Cup footprint. I won't spend a ton of time here, but it is to say it's not just a sort of headline that we want to make this a statewide event. You cannot fit logistically everything that must happen inside of one city in order to pull this off. So we will certainly have the venue itself in Seattle. There's another one up in Vancouver, BC. Teams have to come to the United States a couple of weeks beforehand to train. We call those base camps. We have some potential base camp locations in Renton, in Spokane, in Portland. I would bet that Renton in particular, the new home of the Sounders and the Reign, is going to be a particularly attractive base camp. So we do believe that we're going to have a team here, and it's very likely that it'll be one of the bigger teams to take advantage of what is one of the newer training facilities in the entire United States. So I don't know who it's going to be, but in Argentina, France, teams that bring tens of thousands of fans with them just to watch them practice, one of those types of teams is likely to be based not super far from here in Renton. We'll also have folks down in Portland, again, out in Spokane. We anticipate that there will be a team base camp. We're going to have practice fields, so this is the place where teams play the day before games as they're coming in and out of the city, because no team plays all of its group stage matches in the same place. Right now we're looking at Seattle University, Starfire, and the University of Washington as being potential locations for those. And then the fan activations. Again, I mentioned, and you may have seen in the news, we're going to have the big fan fest at Seattle Center. In addition to the 63,000 people that you could expect will be in the stadium on any match day, we would expect somewhere between 20 and 30,000 additional people to be at Seattle Center watching in that sort of big crowd that if you watch soccer games on TV, they usually cut to it as they come in and out at halftime, and they show some dramatic event and how the crowd responds to it. And we will have that at Seattle Center. Because we want to make sure that we have the ability for the entire state to have access to a place to watch, we are also going to be announcing by the end of this year 9 fan zones. These fan zones will be cities outside of King County, where we'll work with the city to create a sort of similarly themed centralized watch party, although I don't expect that it would be on the same scale as the fan celebration itself. Okay, forecasting opportunities. We'll get a little bit more into detail as we go, but just some things to prime your thinking. How will visitors arrive and move around? Federal Way in particular, I think, is situated in a place where you're going to have a lot of folks who will look at the light rail line, as our colleagues from Sound Transit remind me, there are other forms of mass transit as well that are going to be coming in and out of Federal Way. The Federal Way is pretty accessible to both the airport and to the city of Seattle as a venue. And so will folks come here, stay in these hotels, travel by transit that comes through the city, I think is something that you all are better situated than I am to predict and plan around. Where and how will fans watch? Even though we just talked about 90,000 people coming to 2 different places, the vast majority of people will choose not to go to one of those 2 specific places, and they're going to want to do something at home, in a bar, at a community center, at a public space inside of the city. And I think those are opportunities for businesses to plan. The fan zones themselves, that's less applicable here because, again, we do anticipate that those fan zones will be outside of King County. One thing that I think is interesting, and another chamber leader has brought this up, is The same things that you need to pull off a big community event. So say there was some sort of watch party that the city federally put on, and you had to convene porta potties, get people fed, get transportation in and out of it. You had to have security, you had to establish a perimeter that limits people's ability to come in and out. Many of those things are the same things you need to test if you have other major events. Some of those are positive, and some of those are emergent. So whether it's an earthquake or whether it is the need to put on a different type of festival, something that will get a bunch of people to come to one place in enthusiasm does create the possibility, at least, that you might be able to test some of the civic systems that you might want to test for less happy opportunities in the future. And then we'll talk about the draw in late 2025. So, some things we don't know. We did recently announce that the fan fest itself will be in Seattle Center. We will announce where those fan zone locations will be. But I think the most important information is going to be which teams get assigned to play their matches in Seattle. You can imagine that there are just differences, and I'm not here to ascribe any quality to those differences, but the 20,000 people who might accompany the English national team might be very different than the 20,000 people who might accompany the Argentinian national team, might be very different than presumably smaller groups who might travel with smaller or less successful teams. What we do know is that neither Canada nor Mexico will be assigned to play their host or their initial group stage matches in the U.S. because they'll be in Canada and Mexico. Although they could come here, by the quirks of the schedule, they come in at the right place in their group and then get drawn into one of the U.S. venues. But when we know that information, and unfortunately we're not going to know that until the final draw in December of 2025, I think I want to prime the pump here with all of you. There's some real opportunity that will come from that. For example, say that we draw the Polish national team. I think a lot of folks all of a sudden are going to be in a frenzy to make reservations to come to Seattle from Warsaw or whatever their point of origin is in Poland, and they're going to look at a map or go to a hotel website and say, where do I stay? And the ability to anticipate that you would have folks in a place like Poland and to help introduce them to the fact that although Federal Way's name on the map is not Seattle, you probably actually couldn't pick a more convenient place on several modes of mass transit in between the place and the airport to get to where you want to go to watch the matches, and the ability to perhaps do in-country or in-language advertising. As we take a look at the Pacific Rim, Japan, China, South Korea, all likely to qualify, although I can't say that they will. We would expect tens of thousands of people to be paying attention to take a look at travel. And again, a point of importance here is people don't just travel because they have tickets to the match. People travel because they just want to be nearby. These events are that big, and that's why we expect this number of people. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that comes when we learn who will be drawn to play their matches here. Just a little bit on roles. We want to emphasize this. I did mention I don't work for FIFA. I also am not a sort of, we're not a government. And the reason to point that out is we'll be really helpful for some types of things if folks have questions, and then we won't be helpful for other types of things. So somebody somewhere here already had the thought in this of what if there's some street in the city of Federal Way that we could close or limit access to so that there would be a street party. What would have to be necessary to do that? And I'm not familiar with the Federal Way Municipal Code, whether that's already allowed or not, but if you wanted to change like that, you wanted to change that has to do with drinking hours, you wanted to change where you can have an open container, those are things that are rightfully with the elected government of the city. So those are not the kinds of things that we can help ourselves with at the LOC, the Local Organizing Committee. But I bring those three specific examples up because I hear them almost every time I give a presentation like this. Similarly, we're not FIFA, so we're not going to be able to do things that have to do with the administration of the tournament itself. What the local organizing committee is really focused on is how do you take the world's largest event, recognizing that large events, when they come to communities, have a reputation that is earned in many cases for being extractive of their communities. And how do you instead prepare in such a way that you can use the moment of global focus to make lasting progress on local priorities? That's really what my job centers around. There are a couple of examples here that I want to just share a little bit of information about so that you know what we're up to. One is small business readiness is a key component of what we think our responsibility is to make sure we're broadening the benefit so that it's not just a select set of organizations that happen to have a relationship with an administrative body or FIFA who will benefit, but instead, if we're talking about the importance, for example, of Juneteenth, and we're talking about the fact that we are going to deliberately celebrate Juneteenth and do an educational component to the world about what that means, it would really be a hollow effort if we weren't at the same time attempting to broaden the benefit in a way that would be beneficial to Black-owned or Black-serving businesses at that same time. You can apply the same logic to the Pride Match. You can apply the same logic to really the entire community. What we want to do is set a new template for a way a community can host a mega event where the small businesses that could stand to benefit substantially get a chance to, if they would like to. We can't obviously force folks to do that, but we do have a specific techniques to take the ambition and try to convert it into some specific actions. So one, small business, we are working right now with the Seattle Metro Chamber of Commerce. They're going to be creating a small business playbook. What they're trying to do right now is get the best practices and lessons learned from a number of different communities having hosted mega events in the past for what things actually help a small business prepare for an event like this. If you looked it up right now on Google, you'd actually find quite a few of small business playbooks, but what they tend to do is ask questions as opposed to provide answers or use case studies or examples. So what we've asked them to do is provide examples to consolidate some of that information. And that's going to be available for anybody by June of next year. Anybody who wants to download it, they'll be able to download that. Within King County, there's a program called the Community Business Connector Program, where we are going to be working with them so that they are specifically prepared to work with King County businesses around preparations for the World Cup. And then, not our focus here, but as you get really specific to the stadium neighborhoods around the stadium, we're actually going to have full-time staff in those neighborhoods whose job is to be a full-time World Cup liaison who can provide information and again, be a point of connection with some of those best practices around small businesses. Another is an app. So, if anyone here has played Pokemon Go, phones can do amazing things and cause a bunch of people to walk around staring at their phones and potentially get hit by cars as they're not paying attention as they cross the street. That's not what we're really after. But Pokemon Go as a use case shows that you can actually drive hundreds or thousands of people to places by incentivizing either with fun or with merchandise the ability to win things, to compete with other people. So we're developing an app right now, and one of the things that we're going to use that app for is to identify places statewide that we want to direct people, or places that want people directed to them, and then provide that to everybody who comes to Seattle for the World Cup. So for an example, say the Federal Way Performing Arts Center really wanted to draw attention, or perhaps was going to put on some sort of soccer-themed event for your community. If you wanted to communicate that to us, we have the ability to geo-fence this location inside of the app, perhaps make it time sensitive so it only comes on at certain times, and you could actually incentivize people to come here, and if they come here, play the augmented reality game that is only possible while they're within a certain radius from the center of this room. They have the opportunity perhaps to win tickets to World Cup matches or merchandise. We think that could actually be a pretty powerful tool. Again, there will be 63,000 tickets per game, but for the vast majority of folks, they're not going to be able to afford those tickets, or they're not going to just numerically have a good chance of getting them. All of these are going to be available by raffle. So the ability to create access to the games, doing it in a way that draws people outside of the stadium itself to places of interest throughout the community, so that we can broaden the benefit geographically, so that there is benefit in Federal Way more than there might otherwise have been. And then temporally, to be able to open that app up so that you could win tickets 6 months before the match starts, instead of sort of depending only on the rush that might show up for the 3 weeks that we're actually hosting folks here. So those are two specific strategies that we're currently deploying that are going to get folks out into the community. Again, I can't guarantee that if we plot a marker right outside of a pho shop that people are going to go in and buy pho. But what we're trying to do is to at least get people to places where businesses can then make decisions about what types of opportunities they might want to present or sell to try to reap some of the benefit that could come from additional people coming. And then there's also just the cultural benefit of we're going to have the opportunity to host tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people from other parts of our country, other parts of our state, and other parts of the world, and the ability to show them more of our region than they might otherwise see, we think is really important. Another way to make this last well beyond the World Cup itself. Okay, levels of opportunity, and I'm almost done for the folks who are watching watches here. One, there are some things that FIFA is going to do itself. Those will be super exciting. They'll be few and far between, and they'll tend to be centered at the matches themselves. There will be some things that we as the local organizing committee will do, so I've mentioned a couple of those. Love to have conversations with all of you or follow up about what other ideas you might have. We're probably about 4 months away from fully solidifying a plan, so we've got enough time to actually execute it with quality. But not a day goes by that I don't hear an idea that I wish I would have thought of myself and will shamelessly steal, although willing to attribute. But I think the most important part of this, the reason I'm here today, is that the majority of what's going to make this a cool experience for most people, the majority of what's going to broaden the benefit and make this so that it's a successful event that we are proud to welcome the world here and that people across the world look back with fondness on coming to our region, is going to be what you all do. It's going to be the sort of organic, cool, innovative, unique things that a business in Federal Way or a sort of alliance of businesses in Federal Way decide to do. It's going to be that cool advertising campaign that a winery that has a cellar room inside of one of the shopping malls here takes the initiative and does some in-country advertising in Japan when they learn that that's the team that's going to be assigned here. It's going to be those types of opportunity, I think, that we will gladly partner with you in amplifying and making sure to get in front of tens, hundreds of thousands of people, because we'll have that kind of reach as folks are looking to us to understand what's happening here. I think, again, that's really where the cool part of this will come in. We'll try to pull off a couple of cool things of our own, but even if we had 150,000 people, there are still millions of people just in King County who wouldn't have the opportunity to participate in those, but they are going to still be going to school, they are still going to be going to the shopping mall here, they all are still going to be riding mass transit or public transit here, and I think that's where the opportunity lies. So, repetition being the way to sort of penetrate the psyche of folks. This is more than just an opportunity to have some really cool soccer in our community, although it is certainly that. This is a chance, I think, for our community to show what we're all about, to bring people here, help them feel welcome, and then prove that when you come to Seattle, certainly the event itself, when you come to King County, certainly the larger circle of things that we do, when you come to Washington, the whole state is going to show up in a way that is both beneficial to us and that makes it a good experience for folks who come visit. Couple last factoids. Confusingly, there's an event coming in 2025, also to the same stadium, also by FIFA, called the Club World Cup. It is not the same event. We would expect those to be big sold out games, but they're not going to come with anywhere near the level of outside of the stadium pageantry or setup. Or so the whole point here is just to say, when you hear about the 2025 Club World Cup, which is also playing 6 matches here in Seattle, that is different than the World Cup, and although the Club World Cup will be a big deal, we don't believe it will be anywhere near as big a deal. Really, 80% of you kind of don't care about anything that I've said, but you would like to know about how you get tickets to the match. I'm okay with that. You can scan the QR code here if you'd like, or you could go to our website, which I'll show in a moment. What this will do is give you a place to sign up to register your interest with FIFA when they decide to sell tickets. I make no guarantees or representations and provide no warranties about what that does or doesn't mean, but that is the only way that you can get tickets. And if you happen to have seen on Instagram, there are some businesses out there that are saying that you can buy tickets to the World Cup for them. They do not have them, and caveat emptor. All right, come check us out on the web. You can email us there. or if you're into Instagram, we've got those handles up there. I appreciate you all taking the time. I'm happy to hang out and answer some questions. And what I'm most excited about is the fact that I have a feeling there's going to be some cool stuff happening in and around Federal Way as hundreds of thousands and hundreds of millions of folks are either traveling here or watching our region in 581 days from now. And I'm excited to see what we can do. Thanks for having us.